They had a pleasant ramble that day, over grassy downs, along narrow by-lanes, and camped, as before, on a common. Only this time the two guests took care that Toad should do his fair share of work. In consequence, when the time came for starting next morning, Toad was by no means so rapturous about the simplicity of the primitive life, and indeed attempted to resume his place in his bunk. Hence he was hauled by force. Their way lay, as before, across country by narrow lanes, and it was not till the afternoon that they came out on the high road. Their first high road, and their disaster. Fleet and unforeseen, sprung out on them. Disaster momentous indeed to their expedition, but simply overwhelming in its effects on the after career of Toad. They were strolling along the high road easily, the mole by the horse's head, talking to him, since the horse had complained that he was being frightfully left out of it. Nobody considered him, in at least. The Toad and the water rat walking behind the cart, talking together. At least Toad was talking, and Rat was saying at intervals, "Yes, precisely." "And what did you say to him?" and thinking all the time of something very different, when far behind them they heard a distant, faint, warning hum, like the drone of a distant bee. Glancing back, they saw a small cloud of dust, with a dark centre of energy, advancing on them at an incredible speed, while from out of the dust a faint bloop wailed like an uneasy animal in pain. Hardly regarding it, they turned to resume their conversation, when in an instant, as it seemed, the peaceful scene was changed, and with a blast of wind and a whirl of sound that made them jump into the nearest ditch, it was on them. The boop boop rang with a brazen shout in their ears. They had a moment's glimpse of an interior of glittering plate glass and a rich morocco and magnificent motor car, immense, breast-snatching, passionate, with its pilot tense and hugging his wheel, possessed all earth and air for the fraction of a second, flung an enveloping cloud of dust that blinded and enwrapped them utterly, and then dwindled to a speck in the far distance, changed back into a droning bee once more. The old-greyed horse, dreaming as he plodded along of his quiet paddock in a new raw situation, some persist simply abandoned himself to his natural emotions, rearing, plunging, backing steadily, in spite of all Mole's efforts at his head, and all Mole's lively language directed at his better feelings. He drove the cart backwards towards the ditch at the side of the road. It wavered in an instant, and then there was a heart-rending crash, and the canary-coloured cart, their pride and their joy, lay on its side in the ditch, an irredeemable wreck. The rat danced up and down in the road, simply transported with passion. "You villains!" he shouted, shaking both his fists. "You scoundrels! You highwaymen! You road hogs! I'll have the law of you! I'll report you! I'll take you through all the courts!" His homesickness had quite slipped away from him, and for a moment he was the skipper of the canary-coloured vessel, driven by a shoal, by the reckless jockeying of rival mariners, and he was trying to recollect all the fine and biting things he used to say to masters of steam launches when their wash, as they drove to near the bank, used to flood his pile of carpet at home. Toad sat down in the middle of the dusty road, his legs stretched out before him, and stared fixedly in the direction of the disappearing motor car. He breathed short. His face wore a placid, satisfied expression.